The battlefield had grown quiet as the sun sank lower, painting the ruined plains in shades of orange and deep purple. Daniel Hale remained standing before Sarathis, the alien queen, but now there was a subtle shift in the air. The Vayari soldiers, once tense and alert, had begun to relax slightly. Not because they trusted the human, but because their queen had not given any command. Her hesitation rippled through the ranks like a wave, unsettling even the most disciplined warriors. Sarathis did not speak for several moments, her golden eyes fixed on Daniel. Each breath he took seemed to draw her deeper into thought. Finally, she stepped back slightly, signaling her guards to take him into custody, not for punishment but for observation. She wanted answers, and somehow she sensed that he could provide them. It was a strange and uncomfortable feeling, to be curious about a creature one had meant to dominate. The Vayari guards approached carefully, their movements precise, silent. Daniel allowed himself to be restrained, his hands bound not roughly but firmly, a reminder that he was now their prisoner. He did not resist. Resistance would not serve him now. Survival required patience and observation. "You will accompany us," Sarathis said, her voice measured. "You will answer questions about your people, your strengths, your failures. You will help me understand why humans endure where others fall." Daniel nodded slightly. "I will answer, but only truthfully. That is all I know to offer." The queen inclined her head. It was not an expression of submission, but of acknowledgement. She led him to a hovercraft that had landed nearby, its sleek metallic surface gleaming even in the fading light. As they traveled, Daniel's mind worked quickly, analyzing the situation. He was a prisoner, yes, but he was also alive, and alive meant opportunity. Every second he remained conscious and alert was a chance to observe, learn and influence inside the craft. The atmosphere was cool and sterile, but Daniel noted the subtle symbols etched into the walls, the patterns that seemed to pulse faintly with energy. These were not mere decorations. They were indicators of technology and culture, of a civilization built on precision, control, and power. And yet, despite all of that, he noticed the flicker of doubt in Sarathis's expression. She was powerful, yes, but curiosity was slowly replacing certainty. "You speak boldly," Sarathis said after a while, breaking the silence. "Most humans would cower, scream, or beg. Why are you different?" Daniel met her gaze calmly. "Because fear is a tool, not a chain. We use it to survive, to assess, to decide. Fear alone does not control us. It cannot make us bend unless we allow it to. Humans endure because we refuse to be broken, not because we are invincible." Sarathis studied him. She had encountered thousands of species, each broken under her rule, each convinced that submission was the only path to survival. But Daniel's words carried a weight she could not dismiss. He was small, fragile even, but his mind and spirit radiated something she could not touch, something she could not command. And that realization was both unsettling and fascinating. "You speak as though your species is greater than others," she said cautiously. "Yet you are but one human. Your fleets are scattered. Your planets are weak compared to the might of the Vayari Empire. Why should I believe your words?" "Because belief is irrelevant," Daniel replied. "I speak only what is true. Humans survive because we try, because we endure, because we refuse to give up even when hope seems lost. Power may belong to you now, but spirit is something no empire can destroy." The queen's golden eyes narrowed slightly, a gesture Daniel noticed even through her alien features. She had not expected this. No species had ever spoken to her this way. They had either feared her or underestimated her. Humans did neither. They endured, and that endurance demanded acknowledgement. "You are unlike any human I have encountered," she said finally. "I have observed your kind for centuries through my scouts and spies. I have seen your wars, your failures, your victories, and yet you alone stand before me unbroken, calm, and unafraid. It is remarkable." Daniel allowed himself the faintest of smiles. "We have survived worse. Every generation faces challenges that seem insurmountable. Every time we rise again. That is our nature. We endure because we must, and because giving up is not an option." Sarathis leaned back slightly, a subtle gesture of contemplation. Her advisors whispered among themselves, concerned that their queen was allowing a human to influence her. She ignored them. For the first time, she considered not the conquest, not the strategy, but the spirit behind the flesh. Daniel Hale was small, yes, and human technology was weak compared to her empire. Yet there was something undeniable about him, a spark that no weapon could destroy. "You are patient," she noted, and cautious. "Even in chains, you do not attempt to flee or deceive me." "Why?" Daniel's gaze met hers directly. "Because escaping now accomplishes nothing. Surviving with understanding, learning, observing, that is the real advantage. Patience is a weapon that cannot be measured, and insight is a shield no blade can pierce." Sarathis paused, absorbing his words. It was not a lie. She could sense the truth in his voice, in his posture, in every movement. Humans were indeed remarkable. Not because they were strong or fast or technologically advanced, but because they endured, adapted, and survived against impossible odds. And Daniel embodied that spirit perfectly. The hovercraft landed on a platform suspended above a massive chamber where the Queen's court awaited. The room was vast, filled with alien nobles who regarded Daniel with suspicion and curiosity. Yet none dared approach him, for the Queen's presence alone was a command. He was brought before them, still bound, still calm, and still unbroken. "You are to answer their questions," Sarathis said, her voice carrying across the chamber. "Do not lie. Do not beg. Speak truthfully, and perhaps you will survive longer than most prisoners." The nobles began their questioning, probing for weaknesses, for fear, for the human's limits. But Daniel remained steadfast. Every question he answered with honesty, with clarity, and with confidence. Each answer revealed the resilience, ingenuity, and adaptability of his species. He spoke of human history, of civilizations that had risen from ruin, of leaders who had inspired hope when none remained, and of soldiers who had faced annihilation without surrendering. The nobles listened, some incredulous, some skeptical, but all intrigued. They had expected a broken, frightened human, yet here was one who stood proudly, unbroken, and speaking truths that challenged everything they believed. Sarathis observed their reactions carefully, noting the flicker of doubt, the hesitation, the quiet respect that began to form even among her court. As the day wore on, Daniel and Sarathis spoke privately. She asked questions about humanity's persistence, about what drove them to fight even when defeat seemed certain. He spoke of hope, of unity, of the indomitable will to survive. And slowly she began to understand something fundamental. Humans were not powerful because of technology or weapons. They were powerful because they refused to be broken, because their spirit endured when everything else failed. "You make your species sound extraordinary," she said quietly, almost in awe. "Perhaps they are. Perhaps I have underestimated them all along." Daniel met her gaze. "They are extraordinary because they survive, and because they care. Humans endure because we fight not just for ourselves, but for each other. That is what makes us strong." Sarathis studied him, and for the first time she felt something unfamiliar, respect, perhaps even admiration. She had ruled empires, conquered worlds, and crushed countless civilizations, and yet here she was, captivated by a single human who refused to yield. The thought was both unsettling and compelling. "You are different," she admitted. "I have never encountered one like you. Most humans break under pressure. Most fear death, but you stand before me as though you are unafraid of anything." Daniel's expression was calm, composed. "Fear is natural, but it does not control me, and it does not define humans. We endure because we choose to, because we rise again, and because we refuse to be defeated in spirit." The Queen's eyes lingered on him, golden and piercing, yet now filled with a strange warmth, a flicker of understanding. She had faced countless enemies, yet none had taught her anything about true resilience. And Daniel, a single human soldier, was teaching her now. The chamber grew quiet, the nobles holding their questions as they watched this unlikely exchange. Daniel's words, his calm demeanor, and his unwavering gaze had shifted something fundamental. The perception of humans as weak, fragile, and insignificant was crumbling. The truth of their endurance was undeniable. Sarathis finally spoke, her voice steady but soft. "Perhaps I have misjudged your kind. Perhaps strength is not what I thought it was." Daniel nodded slightly, recognizing the significance of her words. Strength is not always measured by weapons, by numbers, or by fear. It is measured by spirit, by perseverance, and by the refusal to give up. Humans endure because that is who we are. The Queen studied him for a long moment, and in that silence, Daniel understood something critical. He had already begun to change her perception, to plant a seed of doubt about the assumptions her empire had held for centuries. That seed, he knew, could grow into something far larger. The Veeri nobles exchanged nervous glances. realizing that their queen's hesitation was more. The chamber was alive with tension, though no one spoke above a whisper. Sarathis, the alien queen, had called her loyal advisors to discuss what she had seen in the human before her, Commander Daniel Hale. Their arguments were urgent, full of fear and skepticism. To them, humans were fragile, weak, and easy to dominate. Yet their queen had hesitated. She had observed one human stand unbroken, speak without fear, and survive against all odds. That hesitation now threatened to fracture the carefully ordered world of the Veeri Empire. Daniel remained chained, seated on a smooth platform designed for prisoners. His hands rested on his knees, his posture calm and deliberate. He had learned to read tension and opportunity alike, and now he sensed the subtle unease in the queen's court. There were whispers of rebellion, not against her rule, but against her judgment. To the Veeri nobles, the human represented a dangerous influence. If Sarathis allowed him to live and speak freely, it could weaken their authority, challenge their beliefs, and inspire ideas they could not control. Sarathis regarded Daniel thoughtfully. She understood more clearly than ever that survival was not about weapons or numbers. It was about spirit, courage, and resolve. Humans were small, fragile, and physically weak compared to her empire, yet they possessed a quality that no technology could match: the will to endure. She could feel the pull of this truth, but it came with a risk. Allowing a human to influence her court could be seen as weakness. Yet she could not deny the reality before her. Daniel Hale was unlike any other being she had faced. "Your presence here has caused unrest," Sarathis said softly, more to herself than to anyone else. "The nobles fear you, yet they cannot deny your strength." "It is remarkable." Daniel's voice was calm. "Strength is measured by perseverance, not power. A chain may bind my hands, but it cannot bind my will. A throne may command armies, but it cannot command spirit. Humans endure because we must and because we refuse to surrender." Her eyes softened slightly, though her expression remained regal. "And yet I wonder, can you survive what is to come?" Daniel's gaze did not waver. "We survive because we do not fear challenges. Every time we fall, we rise. Every time hope fades, we find it again. That is how humanity has endured for millennia, and that is how I endure now." The queen's advisors, still uneasy, pressed her to act. "End him, my queen," one whispered. "If he lives, he will inspire defiance. He will teach ideas that threaten your empire. Do not be swayed by a single human." Sarathis ignored them, though she heard every word. Their voices were filled with fear and doubt, but Daniel's presence was more than a threat. It was a lesson. Humanity's endurance was undeniable, and now their empire would face a test of its own. The warning came unexpectedly. One of the queen's scouts arrived in haste, their voice trembling with urgency. "My queen, the nobles. They are moving against you. They fear your hesitation. They will strike tonight." Sarathis's golden eyes narrowed. She had anticipated rebellion among her court, but the speed and boldness of this action surprised even her. She looked at Daniel, understanding that he was now part of the moment that would define the future of her empire. The human had survived the battlefield, had survived observation, and now survival meant more than endurance, it required courage. "You must understand," she said to him, her voice steady, "that your life is at risk. The nobles plan to kill me, and in the chaos you will likely be destroyed as well. Yet I cannot allow this to happen." Daniel met her gaze without fear. "Then I will fight, my queen. Not for glory, not for honor, but because it is the right thing to do. I will protect those who cannot protect themselves. That is what humans do." Sarathis considered this, and in that brief moment she made a decision that would shock the empire. She commanded her guards to release Daniel's restraints. His hands were freed, but he did not act immediately. He understood the stakes. One wrong move, one miscalculation, and they would both fall. The night arrived with a quiet tension. The chamber, once filled with whispers and cautious observation, was now alive with movement. Nobles loyal to the dissenters crept through corridors, their intent clear: to eliminate Sarathis and claim power for themselves. They believed that the human, even if dangerous, was no match for the strength of their numbers. They underestimated both Daniel and the queen. Sarathis stood beside him, her posture commanding and precise, yet there was an unusual reliance on his presence. Together, they prepared for the inevitable confrontation, Daniel's mind worked quickly, analyzing paths, potential attacks, and weak points. His years as a soldier allowed him to assess threats faster than most could even perceive them. The human ability to adapt was unmatched, and in this moment it became the foundation of their strategy. The first strike came suddenly. A group of armed Vayari nobles attempted to breach the chamber from the rear, expecting to find minimal resistance. Daniel acted instinctively. With a speed born of training and instinct, he intercepted the closest attacker, using the assailant's momentum against him. He did not kill. Humans rarely relied on needless killing, but he incapacitated, threw, and disarmed with precise efficiency. Each motion was calculated, conserving strength while maximizing effect. Sarathis watched in surprise and admiration. She had expected a human to falter, to be overwhelmed by superior numbers and strength. Yet Daniel moved with a fluidity and precision that was startling. His small frame belied the force behind every action. Her initial hesitation, which had once seemed like weakness, now revealed a truth she had never considered. The human's courage and ingenuity could match, even exceed the strength of her empire's finest warriors. The nobles' attack escalated, and chaos erupted in the chamber. Daniel moved among them, evading strikes, redirecting energy, and protecting the queen. Sarathis herself joined the fray, her power unmatched but guided now by trust in the human soldier. Each strike from her golden energy blades was precise, deadly, yet measured, coordinated with Daniel's movements. Together they formed an unexpected team, human instinct and alien power working in harmony. Time blurred as the battle unfolded. Daniel's mind never stopped, anticipating every attack, every counter, every possibility. The nobles, confident in their strength, were unprepared for the combination of human ingenuity and alien authority. One by one they fell, incapacitated or forced to retreat. Finally, the last group of dissenters fled, their morale shattered by the unlikely alliance before them. The chamber was silent once more, except for the ragged breathing of the two who had survived the ordeal. Daniel looked at Sarathis, gauging her reaction. The queen, usually composed and regal, allowed herself a small nod of approval. "You are extraordinary," she admitted, her voice quiet but filled with genuine recognition. Not because of weapons or numbers or strength, but because of courage, strategy, and determination. "You have done what no human should be able to do alone." Daniel bowed his head slightly, a gesture of respect, not submission. "I did what any human would do. We endure, we adapt, and we protect. That is who we are." Sarathis's golden eyes lingered on him. She had ruled with absolute power, commanded armies that could crush worlds, and yet here she was, realizing that her empire could not control everything. Humans were unpredictable, resilient, and remarkable, and Daniel Hale had shown her the full measure of their spirit. The aftermath of the attack left the chamber in ruins, but a new understanding had emerged. Sarathis knew she could not return to the old ways, not entirely. The humans, represented by this single soldier, had forced her to reconsider the meaning of strength and power. It was no longer enough to dominate. It was necessary to understand, to respect, and to recognize the courage that came from endurance. Daniel, though exhausted, stood tall. His mind already considered the future, the potential to build alliances, to shift perspectives, to influence a galaxy that had long underestimated humanity. Survival had brought him here, but endurance, courage, and understanding would allow him to shape what came next. For Sarathis, the queen, the lesson was profound. She had seen countless civilizations rise and fall, but never one that could endure against impossible odds and still inspire respect in the hearts of her people. The human soldier had done what none had before. He had survived. He had acted with courage, and he had changed the course of an empire. As night fully fell, the queen and the human soldier stood side by side, surveying the chamber. Their unlikely alliance had been forged in the heat of danger, in the moments where life and death hung in balance. And though the war was far from over, both understood that something fundamental had shifted. The galaxy, which had always measured strength by power and numbers, was beginning to recognize a new measure: the resilience of spirit. Daniel Hale had proven that humans were more than flesh and bone. They were endurance, will, and courage made tangible. And Sarathis, the alien queen, had learned that the most formidable force in the galaxy was not domination, but the unyielding spirit of a single soldier who refused to be broken. The horizon glowed with the first pale light of dawn, though the ruined plains below still bore the scars of battle. Fires smoldered in the distance, twisted metal and shattered vehicles scattered across the landscape, reminders of the war that had brought Commander Daniel Hale to the alien queen, Sarathis. Yet amidst the devastation, a quiet hope had begun to grow, carried on the understanding forged between two beings from vastly different worlds. Sarathis surveyed the chamber, now quiet after the attempted rebellion of the dissenting nobles. The remaining Vayari advisors and soldiers looked to her for guidance, their usual confidence shaken by the events of the night. No longer was the queen seen as an unyielding force of unquestioned authority. She had made a choice to trust a human, and in doing so, had shifted the perception of power itself. Daniel, standing beside her, had regained some of his strength. Though his body still bore the bruises and scars of battle, his armor lay in pieces nearby, damaged and dented from the fight, but his spirit remained unbroken. The human soldier had faced impossible odds, defended the queen from those who sought to assassinate her, and now he stood not as a prisoner but as a partner, an ally, and a symbol of the unyielding spirit of humanity. "Your people will not understand what you have done," Sarathis said softly, her golden eyes fixed on him. "They will see a human standing beside the queen and question everything they know about strength, about authority. Do you understand what this means?" Daniel nodded, his gaze calm and resolute. "I understand, but strength is not in numbers, not in weapons, not in fear. It is in endurance, courage, and the willingness to protect those who cannot protect themselves. That is what my people have always done, and it is what I have done tonight." Sarathis's lips curved into the faintest hint of a smile. She had ruled countless systems, faced innumerable enemies, and yet here she was, learning something new from a single human soldier. His bravery, his determination, his ability to act decisively under pressure, had proven that humans were more than mere flesh and bone. They were endurance made visible, courage made tangible. The sound of engines in the distance drew their attention. Human ships, sleek and formidable, emerged from the horizon, their formation precise and disciplined. The fleets had arrived, drawn by the signals of the human soldiers still alive on the planet. Daniel recognized the familiar insignia, the markings of his people, and his heart lifted. Humanity had not been defeated. They had come not as conquerors but as allies, ready to support a fragile truce and a new understanding. Sarathis regarded the approaching ships with careful consideration. She had expected human resistance, perhaps even desperate attacks from the remaining Vayari loyalists, but what she saw instead was discipline, strategy, and restraint. The humans were ready, not to annihilate but to assist in stabilizing the situation, and in that realization, the queen saw the truest measure of human strength, the ability to endure, to act with honor, and to survive against all odds without succumbing to recklessness. The Vayari soldiers in the chamber shifted uneasily as the human fleet descended. Many whispered among themselves, questioning their loyalty, questioning the decisions of their queen. Sarathis did not speak immediately. She allowed the moment to settle. The arrival of the human ships was not merely reinforcement, it was proof of what Daniel had said, proof of the resilience and ingenuity of humanity. "Your people are remarkable," she admitted quietly. "Even now, in the midst of chaos, they act with precision and purpose. They do not seek to destroy indiscriminately, they seek to preserve and endure. This is something I have rarely seen." Daniel met her gaze steadily. "It is who we are. Humanity survives not because we are invincible, but because we refuse to give up. Every loss teaches us, every challenge strengthens us, and every time we fall, we rise again. That is why we endure." The queen considered his words carefully. She had faced countless species, countless leaders, and yet none had shown her the combination of courage, strategy, and enduring spirit that Daniel exhibited. His presence, his actions, and his calm defiance had shifted her understanding of strength. And now, with his people arriving to assist, she realized that the true power of humanity lay not in weapons or numbers, but in the unyielding spirit that no empire could crush. The Vayari nobles, still wary, approached cautiously. "My queen," one began, his tone hesitant, "these humans, they are different from what we expected. They are formidable." Sarathis's gaze swept over them, sharp and unwavering. "They are formidable because they endure, because they do not fear challenges, because they act with courage when others would hide, And now they stand with us not as enemies but as allies. Remember this. Daniel stepped forward, addressing both the queen and the remaining nobles. This war has shown that strength is not measured by destruction. It is measured by courage, endurance, and the willingness to protect life even when all odds are against you. Humans have always fought this way, and we will continue to fight this way. But today we stand together, not as enemies but as partners. The nobles fell silent, realizing the truth in his words. Their empire had been built on domination and fear. Yet here was a human whose courage had not only survived but had inspired change. Sarathis had chosen to trust him, and in doing so, she had demonstrated a new form of leadership, one that combined authority with understanding, power with respect, and strength with wisdom. As the human fleet landed, soldiers disembarked carefully, coordinating with Sarathis's loyal forces to secure the planet. Daniel moved among them, providing guidance, assessing the situation, and ensuring that the transition was orderly. His actions were calm, deliberate, and precise, reflecting the qualities that had earned him the Queen's respect in the first place. The day progressed with careful negotiation. Sarathis and Daniel worked together to address the concerns of both species. The remaining dissenters were dealt with, not through mass executions or retribution, but through measured justice and observation. Those who had attempted rebellion were restrained and disarmed, given the opportunity to reconsider their positions under the Queen's guidance. Throughout it all, Daniel maintained his composure, demonstrating that humans could endure more than physical pain. They could navigate diplomacy, strategy, and alliance with the same resilience they showed on the battlefield. Sarathis observed him closely, learning that true strength encompassed not only combat prowess but the ability to inspire, to endure, and to act with integrity even in the most chaotic circumstances. By nightfall, the planet had begun to stabilize, fires were extinguished, the wounded received care, and the remaining Veri forces were organized under the Queen's command. The humans, while wary, had established a presence, not as conquerors but as allies and partners in rebuilding and ensuring lasting peace. Sarathis stood on a high balcony overlooking the city, Daniel beside her. The twin suns had set, leaving a sky filled with stars, a reminder of the vast galaxy beyond. She spoke quietly, more to herself than to him. I have seen countless civilizations rise and fall. I have conquered worlds, commanded armies, and ruled with unquestioned authority. Yet I have never seen a species endure with the courage, ingenuity, and resilience that you humans demonstrate. Daniel's voice was steady. We survive because we must, because we refuse to give up, and because we care for each other. That is what makes us strong, my queen. And that is why humanity will endure, no matter what challenges lie ahead. The queen turned her gaze to him, her golden eyes reflecting the stars above. You have shown me something I never expected to learn from a single human. Strength is not domination. Power is not fear. True endurance comes from spirit, courage, and the will to rise when all seems lost. You have changed me, Daniel Hale. He nodded, understanding the gravity of her words. And you have shown that even the greatest power can learn, can adapt, and can choose to protect rather than destroy. That is why we stand here together today. The two of them stood side by side, human and alien, soldier and queen, witnessing the dawn of a new era. The war had not ended in destruction alone, nor in domination. It had ended in understanding, alliance, and respect. The galaxy had seen the unbreakable spirit of humanity, and it would never underestimate it again. As the first ships of the human fleet lifted into orbit, signaling readiness for any new threats, Sarathis spoke again. This is only the beginning, Daniel Hale. Humanity has proven its spirit, and now we will ensure it thrives alongside the Veyari Empire. Together, we will face the challenges ahead, not as enemies but as allies. Daniel looked toward the horizon, feeling the weight of the moment. The planet had survived, the Queen had learned, and humanity had earned not only survival but recognition. The galaxy would remember this day, not for the weapons used, not for the battles fought, but for the courage, endurance, and unyielding spirit of a single human soldier who refused to be broken. Then let us begin, he said quietly, for humanity, for the future, and for the hope that endures in all of us. Sarathis nodded, and together they turned to face the city, the planet, and the galaxy beyond. A new dawn had arrived, not just for humans but for all who would follow a path defined by courage, endurance, and unbreakable spirit. The small mining colony on the edge of explored space was quiet that evening. The sky outside was dark, punctuated by distant stars, and the faint hum of machinery filled the corridors of the settlement. Most of the colonists had returned to their living quarters after a long day of labor, while a few worked late, checking equipment or maintaining the mining rigs. The air was calm, almost too calm, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. Then a sudden alarm shattered the quiet. A vessel appeared on the colony's scanners, its form irregular and badly damaged. It wasn't a ship that the colonists had seen before. Its hull was uneven, with strange curves and glowing lines that pulsed weakly, almost as if it were alive. The colony's security chief, a tall man named Harris, immediately sent a warning to the hangar. The craft was on a collision course, and it did not respond to hails. By the time the damaged vessel touched down, a small team had assembled at the hangar. The airlock hissed open, and what stepped out stunned everyone. They were not the usual humanoid workers or the rare traders passing through. These were aliens, tall and slender, with pale, smooth skin that reflected the dim light. Their eyes were wide and dark, filled with fear and exhaustion. The small form in their arms moved slightly, revealing the reason for their desperation. It was a child, no older than 7, wrapped in blankets that could barely conceal her frail form. The alien leading the group stepped forward. Its voice was soft, almost musical, but the translator activated by the colonists made the words clear. "Please, we beg you, help her. Save my daughter." A hush fell over the hangar. No one moved for a moment. It was rare for aliens to ask for help in such a direct and personal way. Most of the species the humans encountered either valued pride over emotion or relied solely on technology to solve their problems. To see fear and helplessness in their eyes was almost shocking. Dr. Elena Ward, the colony's doctor, pushed through the small crowd. She had worked on human patients for years, but she had also treated a few alien visitors in emergencies. Her gaze fell on the child, and her heart tightened. The girl's breathing was uneven, her small chest rising and falling weakly. Her skin shimmered slightly under the lights, not like the healthy glow of the aliens themselves, but sickly, almost translucent. "What's wrong with her?" Elena asked, keeping her voice calm. The alien parent, a tall figure with graceful limbs, shook its head. I do not know. Our medicine cannot cure her. She grows weaker every day. We have traveled far. Everywhere we go, there is no answer. Only you can help us." Elena nodded, though inside she felt a mix of worry and determination. She had faced difficult medical challenges before, but nothing like this. The child was not human, not even from a species known to humans, and yet the desperation in the parent's eyes told her that giving up was not an option. "We will help her," Elena said. "Bring her to the infirmary." The aliens hesitated. One of them, a smaller figure with more delicate features, looked at the others, then at Elena. "Are you certain?" "You are human. We do not know if your methods—" "If you can save her," Elena gave a small smile. "I don't know yet, but I will do everything I can." The aliens carefully carried the girl through the corridors, and Elena followed, preparing the infirmary. Machines were activated, scanners adjusted for the alien physiology, and shelves of human medicine were readied for analysis. The child's breathing was shallow, and her eyes barely opened as they placed her on the examination table. Elena reached out, gently touching the child's arm. It was warm yet weak. She scanned her with a portable medical device, noting abnormal readings she did not fully understand. Her instincts told her that the cause of the illness was something rare, something simple enough that a human might see it, and an alien might not. The parents watched anxiously. They had traveled across star systems, visited worlds with the most advanced medicine their people could offer, and yet nothing had worked. And now somehow a human, the species they had always considered unpredictable and limited, might hold the key. Elena began taking samples, running tests with a focus she had never felt before. Her mind worked through possibilities, drawing on experience, knowledge, and intuition. She moved quickly but carefully, aware that every moment mattered. The child's breathing faltered slightly, and she adjusted her approach. "This may hurt a little," Elena said softly, speaking more to calm herself as much as the child. The girl's eyes flickered, small tears forming as she whimpered. Elena's heart ached, but she could not afford to hesitate. She knew that humans had a unique ability. Even in desperate situations, they could improvise, adapt, and act with courage that others often lacked. The alien parents leaned closer, holding each other's hands tightly. They were silent now, placing all their hope in someone they barely understood. The child's small form trembled and the room seemed to shrink around the tension. Time stretched thin. Every second felt like a test of wills, not just for the humans, but for the aliens as well. Elena's mind raced. She had to find a solution, and quickly. She knew that sometimes the simplest approach was the most effective. While alien technology relied on complex calculations and sophisticated devices, humans often succeeded with intuition, with observation, with the ability to see connections others missed. That instinct, the ability to act, to care, to refuse to surrender, was what would guide her now. She studied the child's symptoms, noticing patterns the aliens had overlooked. The breathing irregularities, the faint discoloration, the way her body responded to touch. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but it suggested something basic, something human experience could address. For hours, Elena worked. She ran tests, analyzed data, and experimented cautiously. The aliens watched, a mix of awe and fear in their eyes. They had never seen humans act with such calm determination, such stubborn resilience. Unlike their own kind, who relied on machines and calculations, humans relied on mind and heart together, and it was a combination the aliens had rarely encountered. As night fell over the colony, the child finally showed a faint sign of response. Her eyes fluttered slightly, her fingers moved, and she took a shallow breath. Elena smiled softly. It was a small victory, but enough to renew hope. The alien parents leaned closer, relief washing over them like a wave. For the first time in days, they dared to hope. "You are remarkable," the tall parent said softly. "We offer anything. Anything you want." "If you can save her." Elena shook her head. "I don't need anything," she said. "I just need to save her." That's enough. The aliens were stunned. It was not just her words, but her attitude. To them, it was almost unimaginable that someone could act purely out of care, without expecting something in return. And yet here it was. A human willing to face the unknown, willing to fight simply because it was the right thing to do. The room fell silent again, but this time it was a different silence. It was not fear or tension, but the quiet of understanding, of a moment suspended between despair and hope. In that silence, the humans and aliens alike recognized something extraordinary. And for Elena, she felt it too, the strange, undeniable truth that humans, fragile as they were, often shined brightest when the stakes were highest, when no one else would act, when the impossible seemed inevitable. The journey had just begun. The morning light filtered through the infirmary's wide windows, casting a soft glow over the room. Outside, the colony stirred awake, miners heading toward their rigs, maintenance drones humming overhead, and small transport shuttles lifting off to distant asteroid fields. Inside, the atmosphere was tense and quiet. Dr. Elena Ward had barely slept. She had spent the night monitoring the alien child, adjusting her care, and trying to understand the strange illness that had brought the Theri family across the stars. The child, named Lyra by her parents, lay still on the examination table. Her breathing was shallow, her small chest rising and falling unevenly. Despite the monitors showing irregular readings, there was a faint spark of life, a small pulse of warmth that told Elena the fight was far from over. The alien parents stood nearby, their posture rigid with anxiety, occasionally whispering to one another in soft, melodic tones that no human ear could fully catch. Elena pulled up a chair and began her detailed inspection. She had never seen alien physiology exactly like this before. Lyra's body was delicate, with translucent skin that glimmered faintly under the infirmary lights. Her limbs were long and thin, and her fingers ended in delicate tips that seemed almost too fragile to hold the weight of her small body. Elena ran her diagnostic scanners slowly, analyzing every pulse, every breath, every flicker of color in the child's skin. The alien parents leaned over the table, their faces showing a mixture of fear and hope. "Have you found it?" the mother asked softly. Her voice trembled. "Do you know what is wrong with her?" Elena shook her head. "Not yet," she said carefully, "but I think I am close. Sometimes the most dangerous illnesses are also the simplest ones. I need to examine her more." The father nodded, though his eyes remained filled with worry. "We trusted your kind because we had no choice. But we did not expect this, your patience, your care. Our people rarely see humans act with such dedication. Elena gave a small smile. Humans are stubborn that way, she said. We don't give up easily. She examined the child's temperature, her oxygen levels, and her faint heartbeat. The readings were confusing at first. Many of them fell outside what humans normally expected. But Elena's instincts were honed for situations like this. Humans had a long history of surviving against impossible odds, of fighting when the tools and knowledge at hand seemed inadequate. That instinct, adaptation, observation, creativity was her greatest advantage. Hours passed. Elena worked quietly, mixing small doses of experimental medicine, adjusting environmental controls in the infirmary to match what she knew about alien life support, and taking meticulous notes. She noticed patterns the aliens themselves had not seen. Lyra's condition worsened slightly whenever her body temperature rose, and she reacted poorly to the alien medicines the parents tried to administer. Yet when Elena carefully adjusted her treatment using simple techniques, Lyra's small breaths began to stabilize. The alien parents watched every movement, awe in their eyes. They whispered among themselves in a language that seemed to flow like water. They had never witnessed anything like it. A human, fragile and short-lived by their standards, taking control of life and death with nothing but knowledge, intuition, and perseverance. Late that afternoon, Elena paused to review her notes. She had come to a troubling conclusion. Lyra's illness was not caused by a rare virus or complex alien biology. It was something far simpler, almost too simple. Her small body was struggling against a bacterial infection that humans had long learned to treat with basic antibiotics, medicine that the Theri considered primitive and ineffective. To the aliens, the solution seemed almost insulting in its simplicity. Yet here it was, in the hands of someone willing to risk everything for a child that was not their own. She adjusted the dosage carefully, monitoring Lyra's reaction. The child's small fingers twitched and her eyelids fluttered. A faint warmth spread across her body, and her breathing became more even. Elena allowed herself a small smile. Progress was slow, but progress it was. The aliens leaned closer, their faces filled with something new. Hope. The father spoke softly. You're kind. You do not only heal with tools. You heal with persistence, with courage. You act when others might wait or hesitate. It is remarkable. Elena nodded, focusing on her task. It's what humans do, she said. We face the impossible because someone has to. We adapt, we observe, we try again when everything seems lost. Over the next few days, the infirmary became a hive of activity. Elena worked tirelessly, consulting with other human doctors through comms, analyzing Lyra's responses to treatment, and improvising solutions when alien technology failed. She used a combination of human medicine and alien life support systems, blending the strengths of both species. The aliens observed everything, slowly learning that humans thrived not on superiority of technology alone, but on ingenuity and collaboration. The colonists themselves took notice. Some offered to help by preparing medical compounds, adjusting environmental controls, or gathering supplies. Others simply stayed close, offering quiet support. Even in a small, isolated colony at the edge of the galaxy, the human spirit of teamwork and resilience shone brightly. One evening, as the dim light of the artificial sun filled the infirmary, Lyra stirred. Her small eyes opened, revealing a spark of recognition. She reached out weakly, and Elena gently held her hand. You're safe now, she whispered. I'm not going anywhere. The alien mother's voice trembled with gratitude. We have never seen anything like this. You have risked everything, and yet you care for her as if she were your own. How can your people be so strong yet so fragile at the same time? Elena smiled softly. Strength is not only about power or size. Sometimes it's about refusing to give up, about acting when the outcome is uncertain. Humans have survived because we fight, because we care, because we never stop trying, even when everything seems impossible. The father bowed his head slightly, a gesture of respect and awe. Your people, you are extraordinary. I do not know how to repay you, but we will honor your kindness forever. Night fell again over the colony, but inside the infirmary, a quiet warmth lingered. Lyra's small form lay in peace for the first time since her arrival. Her breathing was steady, and her body responded positively to the treatment. The alien parents, once desperate and fearful, now dared to hope. And Elena, exhausted but resolute, understood something profound. Humans were capable of facing impossible odds, not with sheer technology or alien wisdom, but with ingenuity, courage, and care. As she watched the child sleep, Elena realized that this was only the beginning. Lyra's survival would not be simple, and the challenges ahead were unknown. Yet in that moment, the aliens and humans alike saw a truth that would echo far beyond the walls of the infirmary. When humans choose to act, when they refuse to give up, when they face the impossible with determination, they could achieve what no one else could. The Theri family had come seeking help, offering riches and technology. Yet what they received was something far greater, an example of human resilience, a spark of hope, and the reminder that even the smallest, most fragile creatures could stand tall in the face of the universe's darkest challenges. And somewhere deep in her heart, Elena knew that the bond formed in that quiet infirmary would change both species forever. The journey ahead would test them all, but humans had a way of shining brightest when the stars themselves seemed to conspire against them.